What triggered the collapse of the Lily mine? What are some key geological features of the Mpumalanga mining sector? What have been the key challenges facing the Lily mine rescue mission? What is likely to happen to the daily running of the mine? Well, what time is it? It's question time. Well, good evening and welcome to Question Time. My name is Sipi Wonzaumbi, once again standing in from Port Said. Now, a high-level government delegation has been dispatched by the Lily mine in Barberton, Mpumalanga, by President Jacob Zuma. This is a mission to rescue 3 trapped miners entered its 10th day. Rescue operations have been suspended following another collapse over the weekend. Meanwhile, the Mineral Resources Department says rock engineers and rock experts have been roped in to offer their professional assistance. A reminder that we're coming live, so you can call us right here on the studio on 089 110 4210. And of course, go and join us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at QuestionTime24. But before we get into our discussion, let's quickly cross over to Barberton, where our journalist, or rather reporter, Si Pumelele, is joining us. Let's welcome you on Question Time this evening, and thank you so much for joining us. Can you just walk us through basically what happened today? We know that the minister did visit the ground and, of course, the mine management. What transpired on today's meeting?
Thank you, Spiwa. What happened today is that the Minister in Presidency, Susan Shabangu, and the Minister of Social Development, Umam Dlamini, as well as the Minister for Mineral Resources, Msebenzi Swane, were here. They met with a high-profile delegation from the government as well as the mine and the AMCU, the union involved in all this. In the meeting, there were discussions on how they can help each other solve the problem. How can they rope in other stakeholders that can help them remove or rescue the miners that are still left underground. But what happened was that the Minister of Mineral Resources told us they are here mostly to offer support, not necessarily in monetary value, but to offer its social services to members of the public in terms of families that are affected, the children of the people that are trapped underneath, as well as to offer the mine tactics on how to deal with the problem.
All right. Is there some
Minister Bathabile Dlamini
Yes, continue.
met with the families, and she offered her support, and she offered the programs that are offered by her department. And then after they had a meeting again with the mine as well as other stakeholders from the province made a promise that it will make a call and ask other companies who have the know-how in this field to come in and help so that these people are removed sooner. Then Mike, the CEO of the company, told us that they have about 24 hours to know whether or not to go underground and get out the people that are trapped. The surveyors, the engineers, they are still surveying, they are still checking, they are still trying to find out if the ground is stable enough for anybody to go underground.
Okay, just talking about the stability of the ground, I do understand that the rescue mission was suspended a few days ago because of the instability of the ground. What could have led to this? What's the word on the ground?
It hasn't been established as yet what caused the collapse on the very onset, but there has been 2 major collapses. One occurred on Friday the 5th, the other one occurred on Saturday morning. Then yesterday, the mine is calling what happened a collapse of the walls of the pit that was opened when the container went down.
And just lastly,
they are not calling it another fall.
Just lastly, Spephile, how are the victims, or rather the family of the victims? Did you have some kind of interaction with them, perhaps?
The families are hard hit, I must say. They are so emotional. They cannot take this anymore. In the beginning, they were so hopeful. They were so positive. Sorry. They were hoping their loved ones would have returned by this time. But no, they're still not here.
All right.
So they're not happy.
All right, thank you so much. Pepile, that is Pepile Kunene, was joining us in Barberton, our SABC reporter. Let's come to you, Mr. Matenjwa. Right here in studio, I'm joined by Mr. Joseph Matunjwa, AMCU president, and of course, just next to him is Professor Carl Enhuizen, a senior researcher fellow on the geosciences at Wits University. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on Question Time this evening, and welcome.
Thank you.
Let's perhaps start this one with you, Mr. Matunjwa. A very unlikely scene in the mining sector, or rather, it's been gloomy days and very sad days in the past 10 days. 10 days, people have been trapped underground. What has happened so far? How is the situation on the ground?
I think the situation on the ground really is not appealing. It's very tense, it's very challenging. As rightfully the lady in Barberton just mentioned, that there was another collapse yesterday afternoon, of which it doesn't help the whole rescue process, but it just delayed it. And you'll remember that the failure of this mine was because of the crown pillar that has lost the, to sustain the surface that led to the collapse. And subsequently, it left some hanging of big rocks outside, which are the ones that are collapsing right now. And also, the ground is not stable, it's moving. So now you cannot risk people to go underground while there is a movement, of the rocks. So that is where we are right now. Hence, the process of rescuing has been temporarily suspended. Professor Malan is on site. We met him today. He did make a presentation that he do really recommend that there mustn't be any person until such time the ground sustain itself, and then it's where then we can make another assessment.
We saw the ministry coming forward in the past few days offering some kind of compensation rather to the family of the victims and those who are trapped inside. For those who are still trapped inside, 200,000 rands and 50,000 rands for those who managed to be rescued. Is this a comfort plan, perhaps? And do you feel that this is a proper sort of reimbursement that is coming from the ministry?
I think I cannot comment much on that because AMCU, we are not consulted as a majority union to be maybe put abreast of what the minister will be coming with. So therefore, I don't know what triggered that or what made him to make such an offer, whether it's from the government or it's from the mine. So we are not really consulted. But for where I am as AMCU president, what I would really appreciate if the minister could change some of this mine health and safety regulation or legislation that seeks not to favor the employees when they encounter such catastrophe.
Okay, let's come to you, Professor. Just take us through some of the key features in the Mpumalanga mining sector.
Well, first of all, let me just say I was quite shocked to hear about this mine disaster, and I sympathize very much with the people left behind and surface trying to solve this problem. Basically, my history is that I've worked a lot in the Barberton area since about 1962 when I did my master's thesis on the mine. So I know the mine, regional geology of the mine, and the mine as I knew it in 1963 has been completely changed by virtue of the fact that the hill that I worked in as a student is now a pit. The whole thing has been mined out, and left behind is a giant open pit. And it's at the base of that pit that some of these structures were established, and it's from that point that they dropped in collapsed below that. Yes.
And just now that you have spoken about the hill that was once a hill and now a pit, couldn't you say, or wouldn't you say, that this on its own would have been an indication to those inspecting the ground that perhaps they need to move to another area?
Not really. The Barberton region has a long history of virtually no accidents at all. That's why I was thoroughly surprised that one had happened in this particular area, and particularly in the old mine that I knew quite well. And it's mainly because of the geological history of that area is such that the rocks on the north side are talc schists, and they're steeply dipping to the south, and they slippery kind of rocks. And they are cut by a fault which runs for 30-40 kilometers from the east, east right through towards the New Consort Gold Mine, which is about 15 miles or kilometers to the west of Lily. And on the south side of that fault are what we call banded iron formations. These are part of the shale and iron formation sequence that abuts against the fault, and the mineralization is adjacent to the fault and spread out for many kilometers. There's sporadic development of gold mineralization, and in the valley just to the east of the mine there's the old workings of the Rose's Fortune gold mine.
All right. Mr. Mathunjwa, this raises a couple of questions about the safety of the mining sector in the country, especially this one in Barberton. As the mining, or rather, let me say, as a union that represents those who are on the ground, those who are affected by these issues, have you raised perhaps some of these concerns with the ministry? I know that earlier on you made assertions about the policy that perhaps needs to be reviewed, the safety measures. Have you communicated this with the ministry?
Yeah, I think when the minister was presenting the 2015 report on mine health and safety in the mining sector, we are the only union who rejected that report, because I mean, look at Impala. I mean, in the space of 2 months, how many people died? Plus minus 7 workers died, and subsequent to that, there is no recourse. In this legislation, this mine health and safety, there is a clause, COIDA, section 35. A family of the victim cannot sue the mine. So therefore, there is no obligation to the mines whatsoever. So they just give you, let's say, 60-40 kind of compensation. If it's 6,000, maybe 2,000, and your children will get something like 1,000. So, I mean, there is no much, even though that the companies are making their effort, but there is no obligation whatsoever. So hence, I'm saying the ministry should seek to change those pieces of legislation that if any person, any mine who find to be in wrong, who had compromised the lives of the people deliberately, must be prosecuted.
All right. Well, a reminder that you're still watching Question Time right here on SABC News Channel 404. We're discussing the tragedy in Lily Mine. In studio, I'm joined by Mr. Joseph Mathunjwa, the AMCU president, and of course, Professor Carl Hazen. And they're just going to take us through the happenings and basically what's happening on the ground. 089-110-4210 is your number to dial in order to be a part of our discussion right here in studio. Question Time will continue after this. Stay with us.
Get all the latest news from the SABC's online news services on our website. Breaking news and in-depth coverage of everything from business, sports to politics and lifestyle. Catch the top news clips and watch live streaming of major news events on the SABC News YouTube channel whenever. Stay connected on the SABC News Facebook page and have your say on news that matters to you. And for the latest headlines and live updates from our reporters, follow us on Twitter. SABC Digital News, anytime, anywhere.
The big news is Newsroom.
We also stream live on YouTube.
Whether you're at home, at the office, or at the gym, wherever you are, Newsroom is right there with you. Bringing you all the latest news, updates, sports, weather, and everything in between. Get all the latest news you need on the go via live streaming on our YouTube channel. That's Newsroom, weekdays at 9 a.m. only on the SABC News Channel.
road for victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back. Because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sport action. This is the home of all your sport news, updates and more. Sports Live weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
Well, welcome back. You're still watching Question Time right here on SABC News Channel 404. Right now in studio, we're joined by Sabelo Mgodwa, National Secretary of NUM, that is NUM in short. Sabelo, thank you so much for joining us right here on Question Time. Now, we're talking about a very unfortunate incident in Barberton. What are your views so far?
Thanks. Firstly, we would like to send our sympathy to the family. Our views as NUM, we also firmly believe that the mine bosses should be held accountable for whatever that is happening in the mines, because they are the ones responsible for the safety of the workers, as much as workers are also responsible for their safety. The compensation that is been pronounced by the minister, we are of a view that it should not be in only one mine. It should apply all over in the country.
But specifically, those who have been affected, the family of those who have been rescued, and the 3 who are still trapped inside, it must be a very traumatic time for them.
Of course, it's not an easy task for, firstly, the people who are rescuing the miners, even the families. They're having restless nights. We are very worried as NUM.
Mr. Matunjwa, can we expect perhaps going forward any more, or rather cash injection coming from the ministry or any other entities that might be involved in support of those who are traumatized by the incident, especially those who don't know the fate of their loved ones trapped inside the mine?
Yeah, one would say it shouldn't be something that only happened at Lily Mine. I mean, for instance, let's drop in the issue of Marikana 2016. 2012, August. I mean, how many families were traumatized when the state butchered those workers? What did
let's rather not get on that one.
But I'm saying those were the mine workers.
Yeah.
You see. So I'm saying this must be extended intensely to each and every mine worker who find themselves in this situation. I'm not saying it's wrong for the ministry to do that. We cannot say that. But the fact of the matter, we as AMCO were not consulted. Hence, we are dealing with the questions now. There are people on the ground asking, what about us? What will happen to us? But the fact of the matter, yes, we know that it's for those that survive and those that are still trapped. It's a noble thing. We cannot just dash it away and say, yeah, I mean, the ministry, they've done a wrong thing. We cannot. It's a good step going forward. Maybe they need to be engaged further, that if we happen to have other victims find themselves in this situation, is this still going to continue? Okay.
Now let's go to Given, who's calling us from Pretoria. Given, welcome to Question Time this evening. Given, welcome to Question Time.
Yes.
Yes, Given, we can hear you. We can carry on.
Yeah, I want to know, this Lily Mine story, this compensation, is it only going to be for 1 month? What is going to happen to the children of those people? What is going to happen to them? Because I understand the family, they got children, they got everything. Now, for 48 hours, this thing is being placed on hold, so we can assume that they will be found but not alive. So what is going to happen? Is these ministers coming only to be sent by Zuma, compensation?
All right. Given, because of your line, unfortunately, we have to cut you right there. Unfortunately, we have to cut you right there, Given, but we do get your point. You know, he's coming in support, or rather in question, of what's going to happen to the families of those victims. Has there been any kind of trauma counseling, perhaps, that's been offered?
Yes, indeed. I mean, firstly, we need to congratulate the provincial government under the Premier Honorable Mabuza and the Executive Mayor, Ms. Koza, which were very much supportive, and the MEC, Mr. Vusi Shongwe, the MEC of Security, they were very helpful, and they did dispatch their team in terms of counseling. So there's the ongoing counseling to the family. I think because of the presidency deployment, now they want to expand it to the school where the children of those people still are, the workers still trapped, to go and counsel the school children and also the community, broader community, which is what they are doing right now, which is a very positive spin of in dealing with the trauma around the valley, and also to the schools and also to the workers that survive this collapse.
It's been 10 days since the initial collapse, the major collapse that led to these miners being trapped and those being rescued. What has led to the process taking this long?
I mean, I've been there myself, not once. I spent one shift, I spent it more than 15 hours underground, starting from 4 o'clock until the following day, not sitting with the DMR head office, looking what advice one can bring in, assisting in some other areas. I think in the situation that it is not a very conducive situation. It's not like a mining. It's not just a fall of piece of rock from the roof. This is something caving inside, which it make it so difficult. It breaks many levels from level 2, 3 to 4, where they've established that is between level 4 and 5. It's difficult. Those rocks are very huge. And also the blasting or the drilling machine, some of them, they cannot reach the height. So therefore, you have to apply some other technology in order to reach the height. So it's very difficult. You've got breakdowns. You've got only 2 machines, 2 dump trucks and 2 loader machines. They've been working 24/7 without any rest period.
All right, let's go now and hear from Dagi, who's calling us from the Vaal. Dagi, welcome to Question Time.
Hi, how are you?
Well, thank you.
That's good. I just want to say something. Joseph Matunja, I don't trust that guy. I'm a South African, and I don't trust him. If he can allow his people, he says he's MKU, and he can allow his people to go on strike for 5 months. That, to me, does not make sense. I don't think that's a leader.
Okay.
That's all I want to say.
All right, thank you so much, Dagi. Let's come to you, Sabelo. Clearly, surely you have communicated some of your concerns with the mining sector in general. There seems to be a question of safety when it comes to mines, not just the one in Barberton, but many others in the country. What efforts are being made so far to ensure that those who are working inside do not encounter a similar encounter?
As NUM, we've been watching what has been happening in as far as 2013. The numbers were close to 99 people that were injured underground. You go to 2014, close to 77, but the numbers are going down. But we are not saying that is enough. We're saying no one must be injured underground. We're further calling upon, maybe after this incident, a bigger team or a meeting where the minister with all labor representatives to come together and come up with a better method to prevent accidents underground. That's our position as NUM. We're further saying it should not only end up in Lily Mine, the compensation. Young people out there are still looking for assistance from their parents, but if it happens that they are killed by the stones underground, there will be no one giving food to them. So we are very worried about the
Mr.
kids.
Matunja, quickly, before we close the show, what then can we expect going forward in Barberton, Lily Mine?
I think we'll rely to the assessment report of the experts which are on site. That is one. And subsequent to that, I think also the government should declare this accident as a national disaster in order to allow or deploy the big companies like Murray and Roberts, shaft sinkers, who deals with shaft sinking. That could help, because Lily Mine on its own at this present moment, with the equipment that they have, they cannot be able to proceed positively.
All right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on Question Time this evening. Wishing you all the best, especially the rescue team that's been delegated on the ground to rescue the trapped miners. Well, that was Question Time for you this evening right here on SABC News Channel 404. A big thank you to you as well, right there at home, for joining us. You can catch some of our episodes on YouTube and, of course, engage with us right here on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is at Question Time 24. From me, Sipho Ganzaumbi, and the rest of the team, it's good night.
And I'm Prabhakshani Chetty Miller, SAB Miller, Anheuser-Busch InBev. It's something that I need to learn to say more often.
Will together produce around a third of the world's beer.
It is a mouthful. Have you ever considered skin bleaching?
Nigeria tops the list of African countries with 77% of its women bleaching their skin.
Now I can see that it is not good because it affects my face and some of my body parts.
Thousands of Arab Israelis and Palestinians participated in a big rally.
Flight MH17 was shot down by a Russian-made missile.
How those chips may fall is a prediction best left to the currency of time.
That's Primetime News, Africa Journal, and Your World on SABC News.
The act of travel is an eye-opening activity that not only expands your view but is a major part of any country's economy. South Africa's spectacular scenery, friendly people and world-class infrastructure make it one of the most desired destinations in the world. Despite tough global economic conditions, the tourism sector is steadily growing. But the idea that one has to go far in order to explore is quickly changing as the sector encourages local exploration. South Africa's history has been one of confrontation, but is now also known as one of reconciliation. World-class sites have been established to commemorate the country's past and celebrate its newfound unity. An area of tourism that is often overlooked is the question of the arts and tourism. Although many cities have not taken advantage of this element to attract international visitors, the domestic artistic tourism is fast becoming a key drawcard for local exploration. A-grade exhibition centers are creating modern spaces to showcase what makes up the African expression. A good dose of creative capital is playing a major role as entrepreneurs create new and exciting ways to sell their products, thus creating new vibrant local spaces that are changing the face of our communities. South Africa has earmarked tourism as a key sector with excellent potential for growth, and a vast amount is being poured into changing the face of our spaces, making them vibrant, urban, and exciting.
A very good afternoon. You're watching the Midday Report.
Lunchtime News Amplified.
But for now, this is what they call home. Their hope to shift to a higher ground seems to be against the tide.
Midday Report provides you with more than just news stories.
I just want Port Elizabeth to know that they own a world-class theatre.
Good afternoon. You're with the news at 1 in the headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. This is News Live. I'm Natasha Thorpe. Let's take a quick look at what's coming up in your headlines.
Good afternoon and welcome to A View from the House.
For all things news, tune in to Midday Report weekdays at 12 noon only on the SABC News Channel.
It's 6 o'clock Central African Time. A very good evening. You're watching SABC News Prime Time, coming to you live from Johannesburg. I'm Vabakshini Chetty-Miller.
And I'm Peter Ndora. Very good evening to you. Thanks for tuning in. Let's take a look at tonight's top stories.
DA MP Glynis Breitenbach maintains her innocence despite NPA charge.
Rescue operations at Lily Mine in Mpumalanga are suspended until assessment gives the go-ahead.
Top Generation star fights for his life in hospital following a car crash.
DA MP Glynis Breitenbach and her former lawyer have been granted bail of 10,000 rand each. They appeared in the Pretoria District Court this morning.
The case of obstruction and defeating the ends of justice against Breitenbach and Gerard Wegener has been postponed to March 16th. The hearing relates to a 2012 NPA investigation in which Breitenbach was being probed for misconduct.
The NPA claims that Breitenbach allegedly shredded relevant papers and wiped clean her laptop whilst she was still the head of the organisation specialised crime unit. A few DA supporters turned up in court to support her.
Top Generations actor Rapulana Sepimo remains in a critical but stable condition in hospital. He sustained serious head injuries in an accident that claimed the lives of two others in Centurion in Pretoria last night.
Sepimo was injured after two cars collided. He's well known for his role as Tau Mokhale on the SABC1 soapy Generations and was airlifted to Mill Park Hospital. He's since undergone surgery.
Operations at De Beers flagship diamond mine, situated on the border of Limpopo and Zimbabwe, came to a halt today. This is the second time in 5 months. 1,100 permanent staffers want to be paid out for shares the company gave them, but it says it hasn't been in a financial position to buy them back.
Permanent staffers prevented buses from operating this morning. Management and workers have not reached an agreement yet. In a statement, Phoenicia CEO Philip Barton said that the company hopes to raise the funds by April this year.
Banned UEFA president Michel Platini has arrived at a hearing to appeal against his suspension from football in Zurich in Switzerland. Platini maintains his innocence.
Platini and FIFA President Sepp Blatter were both banned from the sport in December for ethics violations. FIFA's Ethics Committee found that Platini and Blatter were guilty of breaches regarding 27 million rand payment to the Frenchman in 2011. But the two insist that the payment was made following a verbal agreement between the pair when Platini worked for Blatter.
And that's a quick look at some of the top stories here on SABC News Prime Time. I'm getting confused because it's Monday. Frances is here. She's standing by with the very latest in business news.
Yes, indeed. And I see that you've got Zimbabwe on the radar. They're struggling with droughts and all sorts of things. But what on earth is going on?
This is a very curious case of a cargo plane, and I'll have to explain it to you. A plane full of new rand notes remains grounded in Zimbabwe this evening. The plane was en route to deliver money to the South African Reserve Bank. It was grounded after a body was discovered in the cargo section. South Africa's ambassador to Zimbabwe, Vusi Vamibela, confirmed that the body of a yet-to-be-identified black male was found yesterday morning. The US-owned chartered plane made an unscheduled landing in Harare en route from Germany to Durban following a technical problem. Zimbabwe ground staff noticed blood near the cargo hold. The crew and two South African Reserve Bank officials are still in Zimbabwe helping police with investigations. They boarded the plane in Munich with the consignment of newly printed rand. Well, to discuss, we're now joined by our correspondent in Zimbabwe, Shingai Nyoka. She is in Harare. Shingai, this is a mysterious tale. Just tell us exactly what we know.
Good evening to you, Francis. Well, what we understand is that investigations are still continuing, but what the South African ambassador has said is that they were called on site yesterday after being alerted by the South African Reserve Bank that there was a consignment that was grounded and impounded in Zimbabwe, that they wanted the South African embassy to facilitate securing the release of it. What we understand is that this is a private plane that had previously come in Entebbe, Uganda, on a separate mission, not related at all to the South African Reserve Bank, and that it landed in Munich, and that the South African Reserve Bank officials, who were two of them, as well as a new crew, boarded the flight. But what we understand is that the pilot had already seen that there was blood coming out of a side compartment, not actually in the cargo section, but thought that it was a bird. It's only when they arrived in Zimbabwe that they noticed that there was more blood, and after further investigations, a body of a man emerged or was retrieved from there. So really at this stage, they're trying to understand where he might have boarded the flight, whether it was from Entebbe, whether it was from Munich, and who was involved in it, because this is a Boeing 777, which is quite high up, and so he just needed assistance to get into that particular compartment, which is not in the main body of the plane or in the cargo section.
Is it still believed this man was a stowaway? And we heard that the plane stopped in Harare because of technical problems. Was that in fact because of the suspicion that you're talking about, that there was somebody in that area?
From what we understand, it was just a minor technical glitch and a precautionary measure when the pilot made the decision to land in Harare. Apparently, they lost signal en route to Durban, and so even though they did have fuel, they decided to make the emergency landing or the unscheduled landing in Zimbabwe. And at that point, they decided to refuel as well, just as a precautionary measure, and that's when the blood was seen on the plane. These are the details that we're getting from the ambassador as relayed to him by the pilot as well as the crew. So really at this stage there's no indication that they were aware that there was a stowaway or alleged a potential stowaway aboard the plane.
Shingai, do we know, is this the usual mode of transporting new crisp rand? These notes seemingly coming from Germany, transported in a private plane?
We understand that this is not the first time that this has happened, that South Africa has on occasion, despite printing its own money in South Africa, has occasionally ordered money to be printed from Munich, and that this particular airline has on those occasions assisted in facilitating the transportation of this money to South Africa. So really there doesn't appear to be anything unusual in this particular confinement or this particular transportation from Munich to South Africa by this private plane, which, by the way, is a US-based charter freight plane called the Western Global Airlines.
All right, thank you very much, Shingai Nyoka. And she will follow that investigation in Zimbabwe, that plane not yet released. COSATU has once again reiterated its fierce opposition to any talk of privatization, reacting to the publication of the report of the Presidential Review Committee on State-Owned Enterprises this weekend.